Hi, I'm Matt with State of Flex, here with another one of Everyone's a Film Critic 52-week movie challenge. I am on week number 7, and I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but I chose James and the Giant Peach. Last week I said I just watched a stop-motion movie, and I wish I would have known that ahead of time. I was like, you know what? I'm going to just do it. So I'm rolling with James and the Giant Peach. Released in 1996, aspect ratio of 1.851, runtime 1 hour and 19 minutes. Definitely feels longer, like so much longer. Genre, fantasy. Rated PG, starring Paul Terry, Miriam Margolyes, Richard Dreyfuss, Susan Sarandon, Simon Gallo. Directed by Henry Selick. Produced by Disney. Written by Carrie Kirkpatrick, Jonathan Roberts, and Steve Bloom. Based on the book by Roald Dahl. Music by Randy Newman. Awards. It was nominated for its original score for an Oscar, which is kind of baffling because it sounds very Toy Story-like for the score, but the film's tone does not match the soundscape that is Toy Story. So it's weird. Like, it's not a bad score if it had been put into something more tonally appropriate, like a Toy Story movie or a Bug's Life or something. But yeah. It actually was the winner for the Saturn Award for Best Fantasy Film. I like the Saturn Awards. They do more genre-based material. Why did you choose this particular film? Alright, I'm gonna level with you. I'm not a huge fan of stop-motion movies. I like the use of stop-motion in movies, but when it gets to be a full feature film that is just stop motion from front to back, that kind of loses me and doesn't necessarily interest me. There's definitely very good ones out there. Henry Selick, director of this film, also directed most famously The Nightmare Before Christmas. However, nobody remembers that it was him and everybody thinks it was Tim Burton. Henry Selick, this cat here, he directed Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm a big fan of Paranorman. I think that's fantastic, and a lot of the stuff that Leica has produced is pretty solid. But as an animation form, it is absolutely, without question, my last choice. And I don't know why that is, because I love stop motion when utilized in feature films, particularly not period films, but films that took place in the early CinemaScope, i.e. your King Kongs. I was tempted to do, because I'm a Ray Harryhausen fan, I was really tempted to do the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, but I feel like that's not what the assignment was. The assignment was a stop-motion film, and this is mostly a stop-motion film. Its book ended with live-action set pieces, a pretty long one in the front and then like 5 minutes at the end. But otherwise it is a stop-motion feature through and through and advertised as such. So I felt more comfortable with that. However, if you haven't seen 7th Voyage of Sinbad, that movie is fantastic and you should check it out. And maybe I will do a review of that someday. Anyway, so I chose this just because I didn't want to go back and try to watch another one. Like, I'd seen Coraline pretty recently, and Paranorman we watched at Halloween time, so I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I started looking up ones that I hadn't seen, and there's not a lot that I hadn't seen. So if you have a really good recommendation, feel free to drop it in that comment section down below. Have I seen this movie before? Yes, I have. The other reason why I chose this film, the reason I watched it in the first place is because my daughter's just getting into chapter books. She, by the way, did the illustrations today. This is Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, and then she drew all the little bugs here with James. I'm a big fan of the spider here, as well as the cloud men. We'll touch on them shortly. So We finished reading the book, and I was like, guess what, little boo, they made a movie. She's like, let's watch. So we watched. And this is what we thought. Have I seen this movie before? Yes, I've seen it twice. I saw it when it first came out, because that was when I first read James and the Giant Peach, which was one of my all-time favorite books. I had just read it at that time. That was introduced to me. It's still one of my favorite books. And I saw it, and I was kind of disappointed with it. I never picked it back up again, and I saw it about 10 years ago a second time upon rereading James and the Giant Peach and rediscovering Roald Dahl's work. And my thoughts shifted a little bit, and I'll tell you what I think now. Next question, I imagine. Yep. Would you recommend this film? Why or why not? Yes, I would recommend this film because it's 2/3 of a really good movie. All the stop motion stuff in this movie is pretty darn good. The first act of the movie is really strong with the two aunts and all that stuff. It hits the hard beats of humor. Aesthetically, it's really interesting to look at and very pleasing. Once they go into the animation world, all of that stuff is perfect execution of Roald Dahl's imagination, and it's so great. And then the movie just like floods its drawers in the end, and the last like 20 minutes are so poor that it's almost as if it was handled by two entirely different filmmakers. And it's baffling to me that I don't know why that is. And I'll touch on that with what I'm presuming one of the final questions I'm going to get is, like, did you like the ending? Why or why not? What would you have done differently? Let's save it. Which character were you most able to identify with or connect with, and in what way? I don't know about identify or connect, but I was a big fan of the spider. She was excellent in the movie, both visually interesting, and I loved what Susan Sarandon did with the voice work there. She had like this very slinky kind of voice that kind of worked, but she was also incredibly kind, and I liked how they tied her character in the beginning of the movie, which was something that was very, very loosely hinted at in the book. Excellently done in the movie. Like, for the first 2/3 of this movie, I was like, this is the perfect adaptation of Roald Dahl's work. And then, best line or most memorable quote. I don't know if I have a memorable quote for the movie or best line. A lot of what the earthworm says is pretty funny. I really like what David Thewlis brought to his performance, and he's freaking out most of the time. He's quite fun, and Richard Dreyfuss as the centipede is pretty great. Were you surprised by the ending? What would you do differently? So this is an incredibly adequate and accurate adaptation of the movie, or of the book, for the first 2/3, and then they deviate with one key scene, which my daughter decided to highlight, which was the cloud people. Rather than battling with the cloud men, as happens in the book, which is my favorite segment of the book, they do this battle with pirates down below under the water, which is good. It's a pretty decent scene filled with like Easter eggs. You see Jack Skellington's face on one of the pirates. You see Daffy Duck's skeletal remains as another one. Did I say Daffy? I meant Donald. And if I said Donald, am I losing? Am I Daffy? They do this stuff with the pirate, and then it comes back up and has like this saccharine moment where they're just like all talking about how much they love each other and the friendship, and it's all through song, and then all of a sudden they just are in New York, and it's presented as if the whole story that you watched was like this fever dream, but you know that it can't possibly be because the peach is real, and he's somehow on top of the Empire State Building, and you as an audience member are like, you had a great ending with the book. Like, the cloud people led directly to them landing on the top of the building, the Empire State Building, and the people of New York being cut back and forth between the people of New York and then James and the giant peach. And the people of New York think it's a bomb that's going to be dropping on the heart of the city, and they're all panic-stricken and freaking out. And then James is like, "This is wonderful," and it's like a great like juxtaposition of of like expectations of what's about to happen. And it's a perfect ending in the book. I love it. Everything about that book is pretty great. Minus, some of the stuff that has aged poorly in its offensive nature. But I digress. The film just turns it into this like weirdly saccharine thing, then has the peach drop on top of the Empire State Building, plays as if for about 5 minutes it's all been a fever dream of James, Jimothy, if you will. And then all of a sudden the bugs just start floating down from out of nowhere to substantiate his story, because the two aunts are still alive and they're like threatening to take the boy back. And it like the ending just craps the bed so badly that it almost ruins the whole film that you just watched. It's kind of jarring. So what would you have done differently? I would have filmed the rest of the book as the first 2/3 of the movie had been an incredibly accurate adaptation leading up to that. I don't know why they stopped. It's baffling to me, outside of the fact that, okay, in a post-9/11 world, yeah, dropping a bomb in the heart of New York City, probably not a good idea. But this came out in 1996. It was not a post-9/11 world, it was a pre-9/11 world. So dropping the bomb still could have played as a joke. Maybe an ill-advised joke, and that certainly would have been something that would have dated it for several years and have probably gone into a Disney vault or something. But I don't know. I think, honestly, what it was they thought that doing the Cloudmen probably would have been too hard in stop motion or too challenging without any like computer animation to help it out. So they stripped that, came up with this weird pirate storyline that just kind of sinks, pun intended, and the movie just ends up going nowhere because they have to manufacture this scene from out of nowhere that just doesn't feel organic to anything you've just watched, and it's pretty disappointing. So what I would have done differently, I would have just committed to those last 30 pages of the book and just, filmed those, but whatever. Why do you think stop motion was chosen for this film rather than traditional animation? I don't know. I think I know this came out like the year after Toy Story, but if this had come out, if Toy Story had come out 5 years earlier, or this had come out 5 years later, I think you would have gotten much more of a Pixar animated movie, or even like a direct-to-video one. Probably not direct-to-video, because it is, like, Roald Dahl's works are very, very popular, and this was at a time where his works were beginning to get a resurgence. You had Matilda, I think, the previous year. So stop motion was a viable thing. The traditional 2D animation was beginning to fade. It was still the most prevalent form of animation, but you were seeing stop motion movies more, as with Nightmare Before Christmas 2 years before, and then you were getting the Pixar CG animated thing that you'd get with Pixar, Bugs Life, and Ants the following year. So I think they were just trying to do something a little different and kind of creating like a Wizard of Oz sense by taking you in one world, bringing you to a whole new world, and then ending in the same place where you kind of started right from the beginning, and trying to play it out like maybe it's only a dream, but it's not really, because that was dumb. For this movie, I really like Wizard of Oz, and I like the ending there. It works sometimes, like once, that one time. I'm pointing over here because that's where my DVD copy is. It's a good movie. You should own it. Anything else I'd like to add? Read the book. James and the Giant Peach is such a good book. I highly recommend that, and many of the works of Roald Dahl. I'm a big fan of Matilda, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a great book. I was not too keen on either adaptation of the movie, or either adaptations as movies, but I did really like the book. There's The Magic Finger and the BFG. All of them are really quite strong, and I urge you to check them out. They're quite good. I'm going to end with a little close-up of my daughter's work, as she just freehanded all this while I was at work, and I thought that was kind of cool. But before I cut to that, let's give you a taste of what's to come. The Week 8 Challenge is a film set during a historic war. I'm not a huge war movie fan, so we'll see what I can come up with. I'm going to try and do something I've never seen before, but I might have to dive into something I've already seen. We'll figure it out. If you have any comments on that, drop those down in the comments down below. Peace. Thanks for watching.